Why hasn't the school sent me any information? No matter how much school takes this seriously, what if the other families don't? Terms! What do I do about childcare? How am I going to juggle multiple kids doing school at home, including ones with special needs? What if they don't actually open and we never have school again? These are the questions that you all told me were stressing you out about the upcoming school year. And do you know what theme I hear? Fear. That's your fear talking. So, what do we do about it? Welcome to Motherhood and ADHD. I'm your friend, Patricia Sung. My mission is to be a lighthouse for mothers with ADHD, helping you find your path to success by learning to appreciate your ADHD as an asset. I'm seeking to change the paradigm that ADHD means your life is doomed to be a hot mess. So I'm sharing strategies and encouraging you in your pursuit of happiness to love who you are every day of your ADHD life. Hey there, Successful Mama. It's your friend Patricia Sung. So we are gearing up. It is the final countdown. I don't know about you, but summer sure felt weird. It wasn't the usual summer vibes, obviously, and weird or not, it is time to get ready if you haven't started yet. And if you're a disorganized mom, you probably haven't, so if you did, kudos to you. I was brainstorming what to talk about since I covered a lot of the basics last year about back to school. You can go back and listen to episodes 25 covered just basic back to school prep, 26 covered supportive partnerships with your teacher, 27 covered meet the teacher, and then episode 34 covered parent-teacher conferences. But yet, this year is a whole new can of worms. So I asked on Instagram, what is stressing you out? And over again, parents said all kinds of answers, but they all came down to fear. It's our fear talking. And I hear you. This is unknown territory, and maybe you feel somewhere between irritated, annoyed, uncomfortable, all the way to panic, stress, and high blood pressure. Maybe it depends on the day. I get it. I have an autoimmune disease, and so I see your struggle because I'm right in there with you. But how can we move forward out of this stress spiral into this bizarre, uncomfortable, scary, fill-in-the-blank situation? Because it's coming whether we're ready or not. And I'm pretty sure we're not ready. So what are we going to do? So let's start off with number one. Recognize that this is a no-win situation. Schools are overwhelmed. Parents are overwhelmed. Teachers are overwhelmed. Kids are overwhelmed. Everyone is overwhelmed. There is no good answer for where we are. We're letting our thoughts run around like chickens with their head cut off, running around our brain, hoping that somebody's going to come up with a good plan. And so far, I don't know about you, but my thoughts haven't come up with anything better. So I had to cut off the crazy and say, you know what? I know that as a whole, teachers, administrators, the schools are doing the best that they can. I have a ton of teacher friends after working as a public and private school teacher myself, and I see all of these wonderful humans working their tails off right now, trying to get everything ready, balancing the guidelines given by the state and the regulating agencies, and they are doing their best. So many bowing down. You all teachers are amazing. And I am so impressed that you continue to be so selfless. So I am recognizing that they are doing as much as they can given the situation. And is it ideal? No. This isn't how the teachers would want to teach their classrooms either if they were given any kind of options. So we all just kind of have to suck it up and deal with what we were given. Which goes into number two. You have to pick what's right for you. Everybody's got an opinion. As my husband says, they're like butts. Everybody's got one. Everyone's got an opinion on what's the best thing to do. Well, you know what? People are not very good at looking at other people's perspectives. Let's just be honest here. So everybody's got an opinion, but they really are only looking at it from their perspective. There are some people who are good at that, but there's not as many as we wish there were. So don't worry about what your neighbor said, or what your aunt said, or what your mom said, or your sister's cousin's best friend said. Their situation is going to be different than yours. You have to pick what's best for you and your family and your kids, and that's all that matters. Everyone else's opinion doesn't matter. But keep in mind that whatever you pick, you can always change your mind later. Everything will modify as we go anyways. Even what we think is going to happen now isn't necessarily how it's going to play out. People are going to adjust. We're going to have to make changes. So there will come a point where you can change your mind. And then at that point, if it's not working out, you say, hey, we tried this. It didn't work out. We're moving on to something else. And we'll go to plan B. Number 3, recognize the difference between healthy fear and anxiety. Healthy fear is good. We should be afraid of things that will harm us. That is how your brain protects you, right? That is how your brain enters either fight, flight, or freeze. But your brain sometimes takes that fear and hones in on it, and it starts to spin out of control and it takes over your thoughts. This is where it becomes unhealthy for you, when you're allowing your train of thought to focus too much on those areas. So if this is somewhere that you're struggling, please go listen to episode 37. It's called Letting Go of Thoughts. It's what I learned in therapy when I was just spinning viciously in cycles about things that I didn't need to be thinking about. They were not valid concerns that I needed to be spending brain power on. So if you're in this spot, please. I learned some good stuff in there, so go grab that free therapy session. But knowing the difference between when this is something you really need to think about and when this is something that you need to say, hey, brain, that's not important right now. That's not valid. We're getting way off into obsessiveness, or we're getting, onto like the third what if. Then we need to tell our brains, hey, brain, I'm setting that aside right now. That's not something that I need to spend time on. Then you have number 4, being proactive instead of being reactive. List out a whole bunch of concerns, like just brain dump. What are you struggling with? What are you worried about? And then go through that list and think about, like, is there something that I can do about this? Like, do I need to do something about this? Is it even a valid concern, or do I just need to let this go? Can I cross it off the list? This is not important. What can I do about this problem? Giving yourself that chance to kind of see it on paper will allow some of those spiraling thoughts to like stop in their tracks and give you a chance to be like, okay, am I being realistic here, or am I just spinning out of control? And that also gives you a chance to look at what's important, what really matters here. Prioritizing is something that ADHD brains don't do very well. So we'll get stuck on some of the minor or middle things and then forget about or not notice the important things. So having them all listed out on paper lets you say, like, does this really matter? Like, I've seen a lot of questions about, like, well, what about school supplies? What about school supplies? Like, y'all, school supplies are like bottom of the totem pole right now. We do not need to worry about school supplies. We will sort that out. You don't need the full list of school supplies on day 1. Like, you just don't. Do you have a pencil? You got your computer? You got a piece of paper? Okay, day 1 will be fine. You can get the rest of the stuff later. But people will hone in on school supplies because school supplies is a very easy thing to be like, I can control school supplies. So your brain is happy to think about school supplies because it feels like it has some piece of control there. But really, school supplies, not high on the priority list right now. So that's part of my next tip is focusing on what we can control. The serenity prayer here, super helpful, understanding what we can control and letting go of what we cannot. There's a lot of freedom in knowing I don't have to worry about that. I don't even have any control over that. And then looking at, okay, what do I do have control over? And do I need to have control over that? Or is that my brain obsessing over something that feels easier to worry about than the big worries? And because our brain does well with a plan, we're not going to be willy-nilly here, but you do want to have like 2 loose plans. You have your plan of here's what I'm planning on doing right now. And then you kind of have like a little backup plan of like, this doesn't work out, then I'm going to move to this. That will make you feel better that you have a plan, but also don't go crazy planning it because things will change. You don't need to like write down the 32-point plan. Just have a loose idea of what you're going, what your backup plan is if it doesn't work out, and then we'll move along because whatever we plan right now in 2 to 3 weeks is probably not going to be valid anyway. Let's be honest here. So these are all things about you and your mindset. Now let's talk about with your kids. Open communication is key here. Our kids already know something's up, no matter what age they are. So we want to be very clear in communicating with them in an age-appropriate level of what's going on. So first, talk about what is going to be different, how different is okay, and this is not forever, but it is going to be different. And you know your kids' age, maturity level, their personality, what are the things that they're probably going to worry about more or less, and just giving them that heads up that things are going to be different is so valid for their stress level. And I do want you to voice your uncomfortable. Like, this isn't the time to be like, everything's fine, everything's great, don't worry about it. No, like, our kids will see through that. They are feeling this stress as well. But I want you to have that conversation with confidence. We're going to be honest and say, this is hard, this is difficult, but we're following that up with, but we can do it. We need that can-do attitude at this point. If this is something that you struggle with, I love Dr. Becky at Home. You can find her on Instagram or Facebook. I'll link her in the show notes so you can look up her profile. But she has such great insight on how to talk to your kids when they're struggling with something. And she always says something like, oh, good thing that we're the kind of people who stick with hard things. So let them know, hey, this year's going to be different. I'm not quite sure how it's going to go, but we're all going to give it a good try. And it's a good thing that we're the kind of people who stick with hard things. We'll figure it out. Third, I want you to create stability as much as possible. Our job is to make our kids feel safe. If they don't feel safe, they can't learn. So even though this is a very stressful time, there's a lot of uncertainty, we want to create stability. Things like keeping our schedule the same, which I know you're saying, Patricia, you just said we're going to things are going to change. Yes, I know things are going to change, but we're going to be creating a plan and then we're going to modify the plan, but we're not going to be willy-nilly. So simple things can create stability, like doing our schoolwork in the same place every day, or getting up at the same time every day, or mom sits with me while I'm doing my learning during the first 30 minutes to make sure I'm okay. And then I feel confident and then I can do it by myself. Like, there's little ways to create stability even in this time of uncertainty. I want you to look for those little spaces where you can create stability, which links with number 4, telling your kids that they can and should come talk to you when things are a struggle so that you can adjust. For them to feel okay to say, hey, I don't like learning in this space. Even if it's something you can't fix, maybe you can't change where they're learning because you're in a small apartment. If you know about it, there's probably some other adjustments you can make for them. If your child is younger, a really great way to understand how they're feeling about things is to use the Wong-Baker face pain scale. Like at the hospital where you see they have the scale from 1 to 10 and they have the little faces that are like the happy face all the way to like the kind of like uncomfortable face to the in pain face to like super ow face. You can have your kids use that of like, okay, how are you feeling about this? And point to the faces, because a lot of times kids don't have the vocabulary to say, I feel frustrated, or I didn't like how that person spoke to me. But they can point to a grumpy face and be like, that this is the one I feel. And that way you can do follow-up questions to figure out more information. Next one is a hard one. Sorry. Tough talk these here pandemic times. Number 5 is no whining in front of your kids. What they need from us as parents right now is assurance and honesty, not infallibility, but certainly not complaining. You are only making it worse for your kids when you whine and complain about the situation in front of them. There's a different way to express that you don't agree with something or you don't like something without whining, complaining, degrading, disrespecting. Dependent on your kids' ages, obviously, like this is a different conversation with teenagers versus younger kids. But either way, when you voice in front of your kids this like whining, complaining, I can't believe the school's doing this, blah, 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 blah. Your kids adopt that annoyance factor, but they don't understand why. They don't understand the backstory of why this is hard for you as a parent because they don't have the capacity to understand the full extent of the situation. And what they hear is uncertainty and instability. Because to a kid, you're supposed to respect mom and dad, you're supposed to respect school, but all of a sudden, mom or dad and school aren't on the same page. And kids are very black and white. They don't create that gray space until they mature. So especially when they're younger, elementary, middle, it is very hard for them to understand why and how they can follow school rules and be loyal to mom and dad at the same time when those things don't line up. You are adding to their burden of stress when you create that dissonance. So keep your whining to yourself. Wait till you're with your friends. When little ears aren't around, you can vent your face off with your friends, but don't do it in front of your kids. And number 6, we have to role model flexibility. We are going to talk about it a lot. If things are uncomfortable, say out loud, "Ooh, this really makes me uncomfortable, but I'm going to give it a try." I know it sounds really weird saying that out loud, but your kids hear that and absorb it, and it will become part of their thought process as well of, okay, this is uncomfortable. Oh, this is scary, but we're going to give it a try anyway. We're going to make this work. And when they see you do it, they will adopt that as well. I heard this really great quote the other day from my accountability partner, and I should have asked her where it was from. I'm going to try to find it and put it in the show notes. But she says, your behaviors mirror your beliefs. So if you keep telling yourself that we're going to get through this, we're going to make it work, that belief will show in your actions. And our kids, they mirror us. So when they see us taking on those behaviors of flexibility and confidence in this uncertainty, they will then take that on, and their behaviors and their beliefs will then mirror ours, which is such a powerful thing, Mama. Such a powerful thing. And I know it's also scary because, wow, that's a powerful thing. But to know that the self-improvement that I am doing on myself, the things that I'm improving for myself, will then reflect and improve my kids as well. That's amazing. That's one of the reasons I so firmly believe in working on me as a mama, as a person, because then I can so much better serve my family and lead my family and show my family what it is to be the kind of person that I want to be that will rub off on them even when we don't realize we're doing it. So I want to encourage you in this time of uncertainty and struggle and scariness and so much overwhelm and pain, that we are able to change our mindset. We are able to change our thoughts, and we are able to course correct. That if we are heading down the grumbling and the frustration path, we can make that different. We have that power to do it. For me, that power comes from my quiet time in the morning when I'm spending time with God and listening to His voice and hearing how much He loves me and how He has created me to be this powerful, amazing human being that can do great things. That's what I want to instill in my kids. So I encourage you, Mama, to spend some quiet time today thinking about how do you modify your mindset in however many days you have ahead of you before school starts. And this goes into the first few weeks of school, because let's be truthful, this is going to be a hard first few weeks for all of us. But if we can keep that mindset of we're being flexible, we are making this work, we are adjusting, and as hard as it will be, we can do hard things. We have made it this far in our lives doing hard things, and we will overcome the rest of this crazy school year as well. So you and me, Mama, we're in this together. And I hope you will share these words of encouragement with a friend who needs to hear something supportive about this upcoming crazy pandemic school year. Next week, we're going to do part 2 of pandemic back to school prep. So be sure to subscribe to the podcast so it shows right up on your phone next Thursday when the episode is posted. Have an amazing week, Successful Mama, and we'll talk then. Thank you for listening to Motherhood in ADHD. For more resources, head over to our website, www.motherhoodinadhd.com.